Good morning and welcome to Morning Movie News, where once again Asia's box office strength is influencing Hollywood. And I'm not just talking about Disney's Big Hero 6, which is the second story of the day. What could knock Big Hero 6 and the first images from the film in advance of the teaser trailer from the top spot on Morning Movie News? Well, it's a headline that broke late last night, and as soon as I saw it, I knew I had my first story of the day. And that is the news that Warner Brothers is not only expanding their Lego movie franchise with a sequel, but they're going to give it a spin-off first, based on Lego's very popular line, Ninjago. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, but it's their ninja-based line, obviously, and they're getting their very own movie. Again, not a sequel, a spin-off, and this will hit theaters first in 2016. A lot of interesting pieces at play here. So let's begin with this analysis of this very, as I said, very interesting move. All right, so this spin-off, Ninjago, will come out in 2016. It is going to come out in September. That is a fascinating release date for this movie. September is not a big movie month. And I think this is not only because this is a maverick property for Warner Brothers and Lego. They're not quite sure how this brand will perform. It'll probably have a smaller budget than the Lego Movie and the Lego Movie sequel, but they're trying to see if they can maybe, get a little bit more out of this big screen opportunity for the Lego brand and for Warner Brothers Animation. But also, I think it speaks to what we've been talking a lot about here, and that the movie season, the movie release schedule is just too crowded. And so they have to start looking for new, fresh dates. And there are some properties, as some of you have said, that can really make their own movie season. Whenever they come out, regardless, even if it's a slow movie-going time of year like September, you're going to see the movie. I think so far the biggest example has been Wolverine for 2017, set for a March release date. Very unusual for that kind of film that has that kind of proven track record. And now, of course, you see this kind of big family movie coming out in September when school is starting. It's coming out late September. So, you would think, usually Hollywood's thinking is that kids are, their heads in the game at school, and they're getting ready for that, and their families have just made a lot of purchases for going back to school. Not a big time to go to the movies. But perhaps kids want to blow off some steam. They've done very well their first few weeks of school, so why not reward themselves with the Ninjago movie? Now, another thing I think is interesting is who they've chosen to direct the film. It's going to be the director from Tron Uprising. Of course, that's the Disney XD television series. It had a very distinct style of animation. I watched a few episodes, but I thought, and I think that Tron Legacy not being that great a movie didn't help it either, but he will be making his jump to the big screen. I think it's Charlie Bean. But he's not a comedy director. So I think that's a very interesting and risky choice, unless this is going to focus on like kick-ass ninja sequences. But I think that I don't see why you can't have kick-ass ninja sequences and some comedy. I think comedy was a crucial element in the Lego Movie, and I'm sure the Lego Movie too. Although, now that I imagine it, how amazing can your ninja sequences be with those tiny little legs and little yellow hands for a Lego? I think you have to make it comedic to make it work. But rest assured, the team behind the Lego Movie, which is directors and writers Phil Lord and Chris Miller, they're also the 21 Jump Street team, and then also producer Dan Lin, who we all know is on the Justice League movie as well. All of these people have very strong futures at Warner Brothers, or at least Warner Brothers is offering them that, and they're all producing. So Dan Lin, Phil Lord, and Chris Miller are all going to be guiding Charlie Bean as he directs the Ninjago movie. So I think this is just a really interesting development, and it shows how the whole movie release schedule is too crowded, and also the family film market's a little bit crowded. They have to think outside the box a little bit and wait until you see today's third story. I just realized this is an entire episode of Morning Movie News dedicated to animation and some really interesting, juicy stuff. All right, so let's move on to the second story of the day. Oh, and just by the way, right down below, would you see Ninjago? I saw some comments and someone was like, oh, my kid loves Ninjago, the Ninjago toys now, but when the movie comes out in 2016, he'll already be too old. And I thought the whole appeal of the Lego brand and the movie, or now movies, was that they were appealing forever. They always had a sense of nostalgia, and you don't outgrow liking them. So I'm curious to see if you guys feel the same way. Is Ninjago skew younger or something that I'm not aware of? It's not like it's the Duplo movie, which I actually would be interested in seeing them have a bigger role as the sister comes to play, hopefully, in the Lego Movie too. And when the heck's that coming out? If 2016 is the spin-off for Ninjago. But very curious. And also, I want to know if you guys think this is going to oversaturate the brand. Do you want so many Lego movies, or do you think they should really just stick to the Lego Movie and the sequel? Do you like the idea of spin-offs? And if so, what should be next after Ninjago. All right, now the second story of the day. Big Hero 6 Pictures. This is a, very interesting property. It's a huge risk for Disney. It's their first Marvel property. We've been talking about it a lot. It's not a particularly popular comic book for them, like Guardians of the Galaxy, but they're going to see what they can do with it. It's yet another team film. So now you have Avengers, Guardians of the Galaxy, and now Big Hero 6. And it's a really, it's the first time that I think Western animation has embraced Eastern animation, at least the influence of it. So, anime. And so I'm very curious to see the results. And I think that we all have high hopes for not only good product, but something that's, very, very advanced, and that it really kind of starts to bridge the gap between Western and Eastern animation, which really shouldn't be segregated so much. We all enjoy, I think the audience enjoys both. There's a lot of crossover with the audience, so why not with the actual product. All right, so the pictures came out. I'm going to put them up here. We get our first very good look at Hiro Hamada. I like the way he looks, but I have to say my first impression from these, they look good, but they do not look like a Disney movie to me. They look more like a Pixar movie. I see very strong influences from Wall-E, and also to some degree Monsters, Inc. So I see that influence quite a bit. And then also maybe it could be a DreamWorks film, but I really don't see like the Disney coziness, which I would have hoped. I think you see that a little bit in the shot of San Francisco, one of the first things they ever released with all the lights. It's like almost like Times Square meets Tokyo meets San Francisco. I thought that had a warmth to it, but these, I guess because they're in a factory, seem a little cold. We also got a little bit of the story out of this. These debuted in USA Today, and like a little run-up article being like, look for the trailer, it's coming out. It's coming out this weekend. I'm surprised it's coming out now. Disney is releasing their trailers so far advanced, I'd assume all these are playing in front of Maleficent. So I don't know why they wouldn't come out the week of Maleficent to really try and drive audiences to that movie. I think Maleficent needs it. It was just undervalued a little bit. The industry lowered its projections for how it would open. For a while they were projecting it would open around 60 million. They've lowered it to around 53. So Maleficent is in a little bit of trouble. All right, so anyway, back to Big Hero 6. I like it though. I'm just surprised that it looks so different from what Disney usually puts out. I think Hiro looks very cute. I think he looks a little like Hiccup to me. I hope he doesn't look particularly Asian. This is a delicate conversation, obviously. He looks somewhat Asian. We discussed the idea that he might be a mixed race character, just as San Francisco is a mixed ethnic culture, cultural town. So maybe that's what's going to happen here with Hiro Hamada. I was very encouraged by the fact that in USA Today they said his brother's name is Tadashi. But basically the plot that was explained so far is that there's trouble in the city in San Francisco. They have no heroes to protect them like every other movie universe. So Hiro takes it upon himself, an aspiring inventor, to use his skills to turn a healthcare robot into a superhero. And I guess also he'll eventually build his own suit. We'll see more obviously when the trailer drops, but this is our first peek, and this is as I said, this doesn't make me feel this is any less of a gamble for Disney, but it's a gamble I'm rooting for. I will say one nice thing is that the fact we're getting pictures now and a trailer so early means that this is put together better than Frozen was. As we all know, Frozen infamously waited till the last minute to really release any details. They had some leak, and they were instantly going around making sure everybody took that stuff down. They had the posters leak in advance. They took them down and said, that's not what they look like, and they did look like that. Then they had That's My Sister clip leak where Elsa was intentionally sending a snowstorm in the direction of Anna and Kristoff. That actually didn't even make the film. So that was being reworked till the very last minute, which is why we got a trailer so late. Of course, it didn't matter in the end. Frozen is quickly becoming one of the highest grossing movies of all time. I think it was number 6 last I checked. And one of you pointed out that Frozen has almost surpassed Iron Man 3 as the highest grossing film of the year of 2013. It's very close. We'll probably surpass it any day now. And so at the end of the day, it didn't matter that they, kind of were last minute with Frozen by the seat of their pants. But you don't want to do that for every movie. And it looks like Big Hero 6 is coming along smoothly. Whether or not the results are as good is the question. So look for that trailer review on Thursday. I'm very, very curious to see how it looks. But I'm curious to what you guys think of these first shots. Does it look like a Disney movie to you? And what do you think of Hiro Hamada? Do you care if he's Asian? Does he look Asian enough? I'm very curious because I think that, whitewashing is also a concern somewhat in this movie. All right, so let's move on to the third story of the day. It's a really juicy one. All right, so DreamWorks Animation, as we all know, has had quite a problem with their publicity department, and they've had a number of flops now. The Croods ended up being very successful overseas, which saved that film, but Turbo, Rise of the Guardians, and Mr. Peabody and Sherman were all box office failures. So they are in a lot of trouble with Wall Street. You know, obviously it's a traded company, and they're very nervous about how things are going to go forward. And I think they can't, it's going to be difficult for them to weather another flop. So what have they done? They have switched Home, which was set to come out for this Thanksgiving, with the Penguins of Madagascar movie. That was set for 2015. So right away, not only is that a huge switch, but I can't believe that Penguins of Madagascar is ready to move up a year, which is fast approaching. So I mean, it makes me question maybe the quality to some degree. I mean, of course, it's an animated series already on television, I believe on Nickelodeon. So I hope that the animation quality in the film is a little bit better than that. But I think it's amazing. The Penguins of Madagascar is ready to go already, and it can jump into a Thanksgiving 2014 spot. Second, now Home is apparently such a question mark for Dreamworks Animation that they feel they need more time with it. I don't know if that's just to do a better job with the advertising. I think that short that played in front of Mr. Peabody and Sherman, in my opinion, was awful. I'll get to that in a moment. And so they might be actually reworking the film and as well as the advertising campaign. And it's a difficult property. One of you, although one thing I did like about it, one of you sent me a picture of the lead human heroine who's voiced by Rihanna. It's an African-American character. She looks great. I'll put a picture up right now. I think she looks really good, and I think that this is another great chance after Tiana over at Disney to get an African-American lead character in one of these big animated films. But of course, it's not going to work if she's not in a great movie. And I think Princess and the Frog, I enjoyed it, but it wasn't up to par with the other Disney animated films. I think that hurt Tiana's popularity a little bit as well. So, you know, it's not going to help this character if she's in a crap movie. And, you know, the other thing I want to get to before I review the short for Home, just very quickly, is that the other thing I want to point out is that if Penguins is moving up a year, that means that it's no longer competing with Despicable Me spin-off the Minions movie, which is very interesting. That was going to be quite the matchup, because they're very similar properties. They're mischievous little round squishy circles who are adorable and get into a lot of mischief. So Penguins is actually going to beat Minions to the theaters by a year. And the other thing is that the aliens in Home look kind of like the Minions, and now they're going to go head-to-head in 2015. So that's a very interesting development. Everything seemed in pretty good shape, and Dreamworks has just pulled a huge switcheroo. Now, as for that short, when it began in front of Mr. Peabody and Sherman, they didn't announce that it was the special short that was playing in front of the movie, and it wasn't very well publicized. So as it began, I actually thought to myself, good Lord, I hope this isn't the movie, or this is going to be a long hour and a half, because I thought it was really not good. It looked pretty, but I thought the jokes were lame. I thought it was very slow, and I have to say, it was very Steve Martin. Steve Martin has a very distinct brand of humor. I've never really gotten it. I like some of his work. I like The Three Amigos. Some of his Saturday Night Live stuff is very good. LA Story I respect. But, recent things like Shop Girl, also The Jerk. Never got The Jerk, although I know that's a cult fan base. Those properties are, limited appeal. This isn't a mainstream brand of humor. And I think he has a very strong influence on Home. That's the way it seems to me, at least from this, short film that they brought out. He's voicing the lead character. So I think it's a little bit of a black eye to Steve Martin that Dreamworks Animation is so nervous about the film that he's very heavily influenced. They've pushed it back a year and swapped it out for a much more reliable property, which is their Madagascar franchise. So I'm curious to how you guys feel about this. Are you excited? Do you got Penguins early? Or do you think that they should just scrap Home entirely? And what do you think of Dreamworks making such a public move to show they have so little faith in one of their projects? Can Home recover? And do you think it's Steve Martin's to blame? Do you think it's Dreamworks Animation? I'm just very curious what you think of that, and how Minions is going to factor into all this, and if it will affect the performance of that film. I don't think so. I think Minions is going to be a huge hit when it comes out. The Despicable Me movies, both of them, 1 and 2, were huge box office. Despicable Me 2 almost made $1 billion, and they are the most profitable movies that Universal has ever released. And so I think that the Minions spin-off with Sandra Bullock and John Hamm taking place in the 1960s could be really big for them again. All right, so those are the 3 stories of the day. The viewer question, I liked this one a lot. It comes from Ab de Villiers, and it says, "Hey Grace, longtime fan, a smiley face. I've asked a couple of questions which were probably not good enough to be answered. Oh, that's never the case. So it's just a lot of questions that get answered, and as I said before, I pick them based on not only what if they apply to what we've been discussing lately on the show, but also if I think they would interest a large group of the viewers, so not just to waste their time. But Abdevilliers, you've done it today. You've asked a question which I think everybody would be interested in. So Abdevilliers continues saying, hoping third time's the charm. It was! Question, what do you think of movies that became so popular and successful that they end up with a backlash against them? For instance, Gravity, Frozen, American Hustle were all insanely loved at first, but later a lot of people started talking about how these movies were actually overrated, bad, not as great as people made them out to be, etc. What do you think of people getting sick of overpraised, overhyped movies, and do you think this could hurt the movie franchise in some way in the future? Hope you answer another smiley face. Well, Abdevilliers, I think this is a fascinating question, and of course it came up the other day when I reviewed the Interstellar trailer, and I mentioned this yesterday, when I said, I think that it has trouble following up Gravity, a very high-tech special effects space story. Now you have this low-tech one. And while I have been one of the only people to say that I didn't like Gravity as a story, everybody jumped out of the woodwork on Interstellar saying Gravity was a piece of crap, and for some reason thought that I liked the film. So it was a very interesting development, and Abdevilliers, of course, I think picked up on that and looped in Frozen and American Hustle, which to some degree have had some backlash. American Hustle, I haven't been too aware of the backlash on that film. I think it happened when the film came out, but it wouldn't be, I think, to the degree of like what I saw with Gravity on the Interstellar trailer review. So to answer your question, all right, Abdevilliers, on some cases there is a backlash. Sometimes things become so popular, people are like, now I'm sick of it. But I don't think that's the case with any of these movies. I think there's people who have made some good-natured jokes about having to listen to Let It Go so many times, but as I said, those were good-natured. I wouldn't really call that a backlash. It's just a side effect. It's a cause and effect of having to listen to the song ad nauseum. But I heard such adorable stories about this song that I'm cool with it. I think it's great. I heard it's a great story, just a side note, about this little boy who was a big fan of the song Let It Go. And he was, with his dad, and they were going to go take the bus. And so when they got to the bus stop, this other little girl, these kids are about 4, by the way. This little girl is listening to Let It Go on like some kind of device out loud. And the little boy, they don't know each other, comes up and sits next to her, and they watch it together, and they sing along out loud. These two strangers bonding over Let It Go. And something so magical, how can you hate something so magical? All right, so, but to answer your question, Abdevilliers, I think what happens is, aside from a backlash, which is sometimes the case, but as I said, not here, some people don't like a movie when it comes out, but the people who like it are so vocal that the people who don't like it don't really feel comfortable speaking out because they don't want to get slammed, as you see happens a lot in the internet comments. So they keep it to themselves because for some reason, some people, just aren't as inspired to join the conversation as others. I think that's what marks the fanboy demographic. Very vocal, wanting to express an opinion. But a lot of mainstream moviegoers, unless it's like a really big deal, and I'll get to that in a moment with Godzilla, generally tend to be like, you know what, I didn't like it, and I did like it, and I don't feel the need to discuss it. So I think sometimes, comments that you're seeing and feedback and buzz aren't always indicative of the actual response that's going on. So you always have to look for that. So I think what's happened is that as time has passed, these people who didn't like the movie feel more comfortable coming out and saying they didn't like it. So, and I also, with Interstellar, I think it's not so much a backlash against Gravity, but fiercely protecting Nolan's legacy and the fact that he, I think some people are pointing out this looks like maybe his weakest movie to date, and it's at a very bad time for him coming off of the DC movies that he's decided to leave by choice. So I think people are, his fans, and he has great fans, are protecting him and trying to, just push Gravity out of the conversation. Just a real, like a knee-jerk reaction. And it's a little too much, but, I think it comes from, again, a nice place for love for Nolan. But yeah, it's tough when people really jump on you. I've had to weather quite a bit of comments, as you guys have seen, for Gravity and Frozen and Interstellar and even Godzilla. But this is what I wanted to say about Godzilla. Godzilla is a very interesting situation because I think some people were so upset about Godzilla and so disappointed in the film, they have been very vocal about not liking it. Usually when people don't like a film, it just fades away from discussion after about the first weekend. Like for instance, take Amazing Spider-Man 2. The thing kind of just withered on the vine. Some people said they were disappointed, but not like the Godzilla feedback. Of course, there was very intense positive feedback, but there was very intense negative feedback. People saying this is, I told you the people I went said it was the worst movie they'd ever seen. People writing down how disappointed they were, what a letdown this was, how the advertising campaign was very misleading in terms of Godzilla and Bryan Cranston. And so I think that was such a case where it was so disappointing and so contrary to what people were expecting that people who usually sit these things out came out at the beginning of the conversation. So that's what's going on. I think it's a situation about, some degree internet bullying, the type of movie fan, the type of internet person, how people interact on the internet, and then also, how much is at stake, how much you're disappointed. It's always a very interesting mix, and I think you have to take all those things into account. But it's fascinating to see unfold. I find it fascinating, at least, and I know some of you do as well. And I hope that Abdevillers, this gave you a little bit more perspective as to why sometimes people turn on a movie, or sometimes just feel comfortable finally admitting, you know what, I didn't love it. I feel now a little safer to say that. All right, so everybody, thank you for tuning in. Please write down below what you think of today's 3 top stories, the viewer question, anything you'd like to see covered tomorrow, and any questions that you might have. Thanks for watching. Bye.